Hi and welcome to Extreme Academy Live Part 6. Yeah, Part 6. We're already done 5 and we're into week 6 now. You've done a lot of training with us, so thank you very much. Now, you're probably getting to know us a little bit. You're probably getting to know Isaac a lot after studying so much and watching him either live or on demand. We'd like to get to know you a bit better. We'd like to know your story. So there's a couple of things that the team have been working on this week that I'm going to announce now. We'd like to invite you to share your stories with us. If you're retraining for a new career, or if you are an experienced engineer and you're just here to help and you like what we're doing, we'd love it if you could share your stories, because we'd like to share those or share part of those in our upcoming social media activity and some blogs that we've got planned. So if you'd like to do that, purely optional, just drop us an email. Then somebody from our social media team will get in touch with you, and if we are able to use and share your story, then we'll send you one of these T-shirts that I'm modelling right now as a mark of our gratitude. Now, if you've been with us from the start and you've understood binary, you'll know the significance of these numbers that I've got on my shirt here. But I'm not going to tell you what they mean. But if you take a close look there, you'll probably get it straight away if you've understood binary. If you don't understand that, then go back to lesson 1 and go and learn about binary, because it's a fundamental skill for being a network engineer. So share your stories. We'd love to get to know you and get to know what you're trying to achieve. Now, second thing we're going to do, and again, this is just for fun, it's purely optional, on the Meeting Pulse app, which is the place you go to ask questions and take quizzes. That's the URL over my shoulder right now. We've opened up a new tab, a new function called Photo. And we'd love it if you could just share a photo with us, share a photo with the rest of your classmates. The Extreme team are going to do it. It could be a selfie, it could be a picture of your setup right now where you're sitting. It could be a photo out the window. So if you've got snow on the ground or you've got something amazing that you can see out of your window, then take a photo, share it with the rest of the class, and share it back with us. We'll leave that open for about an hour, and we'll see how you like it, see whether it just keeps us feeling a bit more connected in this very remote and distributed world we live in right now. Now, to the topic of this week's session, we're talking about network management and cloud network management. So in the first half, Isaac's going to take you through the principles of network management and why is that important. Why should you know about that as a network engineer? Then after the break, we're going to talk about ExtremeCloud IQ, and Isaac's going to give you a live demo. He's going to take you through ExtremeCloud IQ and just show you how that technology, sort of leading and award-winning technology from Extreme, is helping our customers simplify what they do in terms of network management. All right, Claire, we're ready to go. If you want to queue up Isaac. I think it's been a bit cold in Cambridge this week, because I've seen Isaac preparing this morning, and he's got a very warm hat on. So it is getting cold in the UK, so that's why Isaac's got a different hat on this week. So Claire, over to you. Let's cue Isaac and let's go with week 6.
Thank you, Rowan. Here we are back again. Wow, we're approaching the end now, so it's really exciting. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for such good attitude. There's been a number of people, as I've gone back and read the chat, there's been quite a number of people who've been so helpful. When people have asked questions on the chat, people like Wilson, for example, have been fantastic in just helping out. I remember last week, I think it was last week, somebody asked, hey, if you guys know so much about this technology, how come you're watching this course? Because it's quite basic, right? And I think one of the responses that came through is, hey, you never know everything. You can always learn something new and help someone else, who might not know. And that's such a fantastic, that's such a fantastic attitude and a wonderful community, spirit. And that's what Extreme's about, right? That's what Extreme's about. Even though there's some absolutely brilliant people, in the company, so knowledgeable, so clever, you can ask questions. There's always somebody there around that's happy to help you, happy to ask, to answer your question. And that's really what this is about, right? When I was at high school and at college, I sometimes was scared to ask questions. I was scared that asking a question would somehow make me look stupid, or an idiot, or why is he asking this question? And because of that, I would often not ask the question, right? And walk away frustrated because I didn't really understand, but I was too scared to ask, scared about what other people think. Hey, you know what? Who cares what other people think? If you don't understand something, then ask. Feel free to ask, either on here, on this live broadcast, or watch, or ask on Meeting Pulse, for example. Some of you already know Meeting Pulse. You've seen that URL. That there's a team behind me that go in and they answer questions in real time. But that doesn't mean that that's the end of answering questions, because I and a number of my colleagues, we still monitor Meeting Pulse after the live session has ended. I've answered questions like a week afterwards. I go in and I see that there's still questions over there, and I go in and I I answer. And hopefully, you guys who've asked the questions have seen the responses that come through. But there is no such thing as a dumb question. There's no such thing as, this is a stupid question, apologies, I just want to ask. No, there's no such thing. If you don't know it, then you don't know it. It's as easy as that. So feel free to ask. This is a safe place. This community is a safe place where you can ask questions. And if you're one of those guys who says, oh, that's such a stupid question, don't be that guy. Don't be that person, or the girl, don't be that person. If you know all the answers, then help other people. Make it safe for people to ask questions. Thank you for everybody who's asked, for everybody who's putting really nice comments. It helps us, our community, the subscriptions, the amount of people who are subscribed to our channel has been growing significantly and steadily. That's fantastic. Tell other people about this. Remember, you guys are watching live broadcasts of these training sessions. These sessions will stay up, and other people, for example, your friends, your colleagues, etc., who haven't watched this live, they can go in and watch it anytime. Even you. Sometimes, like last week, I'm really sorry. I went about 15 minutes over time. I really do apologize. We saw in the numbers that at 2 hours, a lot of people kind of fell away, because obviously people have limits. So today, we're going to do, I think it's 3 or 4 kind of small sessions, and we will not take up the 2 hours in total. We'll probably finish around 1 hour 30. So let's jump into it. By the way, I gave you some homework last week, which was composed of 2 things. You had to watch a video on Dijkstra's theorem, or Dijkstra's algorithm. I hope you watch that. If you don't know where you find your that homework, Claire normally clears the homework session after each kind of session, or at the start of the new session. And so towards the end of this session, she will put up the new materials, or all the homework from all the different sessions. And if you haven't done it yet, please go and do the homework from last week, Dijkstra's algorithm. See how the explanation for how Dijkstra's works, and then I gave you some homework. So at the end of this session, there will be a recording of working out the solution from last week's homework. Okay, what was the answer? How was it worked out? If you haven't done the homework, don't. If you haven't done it or attempted it yet, don't do it now. Don't cheat. Just go and watch that homework first. Go and watch that explanation, and then once you've done that and tried it yourself and got an answer, then go and look at the homework that's going to be published at the end of the session, and then work it out, comment. And I hope you enjoyed it, because I think Dijkstra is really, really clever. So today we're going to be talking about managing networks and devices. When I lived in South Africa, I ran my own IT business. I ran it for about 10 years, and it was a small consultancy. I used to specialize in helping customers with less than 50 computers, right? In South Africa, we call that the SME market, the small medium enterprise market. Now, the target of this training that we've been doing has been to get people curious about networking, get people involved in networking. We have a goal of bringing 50,000 engineers into this industry, and a lot of people, because of COVID, in 2020. Perhaps watching this have lost their jobs, or maybe somebody who might have lost their job. Travel industry, so many different industries. In the UK, the government is helping people to what they call retool their skills. So you might have trained as somebody in the airline industry, and now you don't have a job. So the government is going to help people to retrain. And you might be watching this because you might have an interest in networking or computing and think, yeah, this is something that I might want to do. And I'm telling you this because in South Africa, if I had this knowledge that I'm teaching you now, and from these last weeks, if I had this knowledge, I would have been a much better network engineer. I would have been able to grow my business faster, hire more people. I would have understood some of those things that I didn't quite understand back then. But if you've been with us, and for those of you who've been watching since session 1 live, why don't you just go onto the chat now? And if you've been watching every session, just go there and say, hey, I've watched every session, just so that we kind of get an idea. That would be really cool. But if you've been watching every session and thinking, how can I turn this into a career? Because I really enjoy this. This is quite fun. You could even do a business like me. I didn't know half the stuff that I'm teaching you now. And I got into business and I was like, yeah, let's go in. I know a little bit about computing. I know a little bit about that. I'll help you with this, And just by being brave, by asking, I managed to get some business. There's always business. There's always small business that's looking for somebody reliable, somebody dependable. You don't always have to be, an engineer, out of the top row from Harvard for people to give you work. You don't have to do that. You just need to be brave. If you know your stuff, if you've read, if you've watched these videos, if you've learned from them, hey, take a step. Take a big step, be brave, start your own little business, knock on somebody's door and say, hey, I'm a networking guy. I understand networking. If you need any help, let me, give me a shot. Let me try. Because just by being reliable half the time, you get business, So if you've watched this stuff, I'm sure you've already learned. And add to this other stuff that you can read online. Hey, you could be doing what I'm doing. But I'm telling you this because part of my job when I ran my own business was managing customers' networks. So once I had set up their networks, set up their wireless, set up their servers and connection to the internet, my work became maintenance, right? And a lot of my time was spent driving to customers. So I didn't have all the knowledge. VPN technology was a lot more expensive than it is today. And I used to spend a lot of time on the road driving to these customers, to go sort out networking issues and all the types of issues that normally pop up. Today, that type of technology, a lot of that technology can all be done remotely. And so you could be sitting at home like I am now and managing customers' networks right across the world. You could be that person. But in general, anybody who works in networking, you're going to need to manage networks. And that's what these lessons today are about. So let's go and read them like we normally do, right? Managing networks and devices. To understand the rationale behind network management. Okay, why do we need to do this? To understand how networks and devices are managed in an on-premise or cloud scenario. So what does that mean? Well, in the days when I was running my business in South Africa, we didn't have this concept, 15 years ago of, on cloud. That concept was just very theoretical at that point in time. It's no longer theoretical. It's really really real and really relevant, today. But back then it wasn't. So that back then we had servers, network, all this stuff was all done on premise. But today we'll talk about the differentiation between both of those and what it means to manage locally and to manage from the cloud. We'll look at understanding the principles of network management. We call that FCAPS. It's quite interesting, and you'll learn something as well from that. We'll look at the experience, the benefits of ExtremeCloud IQ. So ExtremeCloud IQ is really the crown jewels of Extreme. Well, not the crown jewels, but it's everything that we're doing is built around ExtremeCloud IQ, because this is the way that technology is moving, and it's such a fantastic tool. I'm going to demo it in section 2 today. You're going to actually see it, and I've been promising this since lesson 1, but today you will actually see ExtremeCloud IQ and see the power behind this particular tool. And then finally, we're looking at understanding the basics of network management, options and protocols that we use when we're talking about network management. So having established that, let's start looking at answering the question, why manage networks? Okay. Everything requires maintenance. Okay, it's just one of those things. If you don't maintain everything, from painting your house to, if the government doesn't maintain the streets, do maintenance and fix the potholes, you know what happens, right? It rains and it's a mess. And so maintenance is a necessary part of life. And in networking, it is no different. It is still a necessary part of life. Why? Because maintenance and network maintenance specifically is really critical for business. If you're arriving at the end of the month, okay, month end, and your accounting department cannot process invoices and statements and things like that, that's going to impact the entire business. It's going to impact your salary, your wages. It's going to impact sales. It's going to impact what you can do next month. It's going to impact all of those things. If you can't get email because your mail servers are down, your network isn't working, that can impact your orders. That can impact so many different things. So maintenance of your networks is critically important to keep those things up and running, to keep your business running, right? Now, sometimes we talk about small business, but it scales massively. The bigger the business, the more critical the network becomes. And you guys know, if you're a network engineer and you're working in a company with 100 computers or 1,000 computers, for example, you know how critical it is if there is an impact on your network. If networking goes down, right? The phone goes crazy, it doesn't stop ringing if it's not a network phone, otherwise your mobile phone, right? So network management is incredibly important, especially if you do things like e-business. If you transact online, whoa, if your servers are down, that directly translates into money. So maintenance is incredibly important because it's critical to business. Maintenance is also important because of the complexity of networking. Now, networks are complex, right? Networking is complex and can be incredibly complex in large organizations. Make no mistake, Extreme has a lot of fabulous technologies to make things easier, like a fabric, for example. Our fabric is really great and makes a lot of high-level networking very, very easy, or a lot easier. But make no mistake, networking can be incredibly complex, and it gets more and more complex as more functionality. Now it's Extreme Networks' vision to simplify that, to abstract the complexity out of networking, so that the end users, the customers, they find it really easy. They switch on a switch and it just works. Well, it just works because we've been working behind the scenes to simplify that. But that doesn't mean we're not talking with something complex, about something simple. Networking can be very, very complex. So you need to do maintenance, because if you don't do maintenance on these complex networks, it's going to be an issue, and it can scale out of control. So it's always better to do a little bit of maintenance than be hit with a massive crash because you haven't done any maintenance. The other thing is, you've heard about networking people or IT people that
Sorry,
it seems
I couldn't hear what you said.
It always seems that you hear about this term, all I do is put out fires. All I do is put out fires, right? And if that's what you do, then something is wrong. If you're a networking guy, if you're a firefighter, then that's perfectly acceptable. But if you're in IT, if you're a networking guy, and all you do is put out fires, it tells you that something is not right on your network, okay? It shouldn't be like that. We should be able to manage networks, do little incremental changes to prevent putting out fires. This attitude where you go from crisis to crisis to crisis. If that's the type of networking maintenance that you're doing, then you're doing something wrong, or somebody is doing something wrong. We should be able to do little maintenance to prevent this type of thing. And what we should be doing is not reacting to situations. We should be proactive in making sure that fires don't just burn out of control on our network. All of that also translates to this, right? This. Companies invest in networks so that it can be reliable, so that it doesn't cost them huge amounts of money. Customers buy great switches from Extreme because maintenance cost on those is low. So we do maintenance on these things and we do upgrades and things like that, because by investing, we spend less time managing and putting out fires. So these are all the types of, and there might be more, of course. These are the main ones why we do maintenance, right? Network management, network maintenance on our networks, on our infrastructure. So mostly networking equipment, almost all networking equipment, okay, can be managed. I would say all networking equipment can be managed. No, almost all networking equipment can be managed in various ways. Okay, at least kind of three types of ways. But when we talk about at least in two ways. Let's use that for now. okay, because there's different methods, but they can be managed. All types of equipment can be managed with a what we call a CLI, command line interface, and I'll show you what that means for those of you who don't know. And then by using a GUI. Again, that's a term that if you're watching this and you're not really IT, what's a GUI? It's a graphical user interface, and it's more difficult to explain it than to actually show you. So let me show you what we mean. This is what we call, what you see on the left hand side of the screen is what you call a command line interface. For old timers like me, we first saw this when we started to work in computing pre-Microsoft Windows, okay? Pre-Microsoft Windows. For those of you who started to work, for example, in Linux, and even today, a lot of people prefer Linux, and they prefer it in a command line interface mode. But pre-Windows, command line interface is how you did things. My first experience, my very first computer didn't have a graphical user interface, didn't have Windows on it. It was pre-Windows. It was DOS. I was running DOS 3, I think it was. That was my very first experience in computing. And I'm sure there must be people online, tell us on your chat, what was your first experience with computers, right? Was it DOS? Was it Windows 3, 3.1, 3.11? Remember that? Windows for networking? Wow, those were the old days. But what that meant is everything that you did was on the command line interface like this, was on a black screen, and you typed in either, you typed in all of your commands. Like I say, experienced network engineers, they still love this type of method of work in command line interface. So this was one of the ways that you did it. And commands, the reason people like this is it's incredibly fast. The text is in clear text. I mean, it's really easy to read. And it's reachable. Oftentimes, it was reachable through what we call a serial connection. Now, let me show you, because those of you new to computing have no idea. So this is a really old access point. I mean, look at this, with its antennas on there. But look at this. When I turn it around on the back of this device, if you wanted to manage this device, as you can see, there are no USB ports on here, okay? So you could connect this. Look at that. This is power over Ethernet. Remember, we did the session on power over Ethernet, and there we have power over Ethernet. That's how you would have powered this device, or you had external power, right? So if you place this device near a wall socket, then you could have plugged it in here. But if this went into your ceiling, for example, you could have powered it using this. But look here, you don't see this a lot nowadays, especially on laptops. But there was a time when all laptops used to come with serial connectors. And if you wanted to talk to the CLI, to the command line interface on this device, if you wanted to do some configuration, you would plug in a serial cable onto this side, and the other end of the serial cable would be plugged into your computer. There would be a port on your computer, and Apple was the first one to get rid of those, because that prevented your laptops from being really thin. So today we don't even see laptops anymore that have those serial connectors, and most devices nowadays have a USB cable, or they will have a RJ45 network cable that you can attach to them to do this type of CLI work on that. So this is what command line interface looks like. Now, those of you who've grown up on Windows and that's all you've ever known, why would you do a command line interface? Well, if you start using it and if you get into Linux, you'll see that it just makes so much sense. But it's not the only way to manage networking, to manage devices. There's another way as well, and this is GUI. And on the screen, what you see over there is what we call a GUI, a graphical user interface. So it's where data is presented to you in a graphical form. You can imagine that there's certain types of stuff that you can do with this that are a lot easier to do with a mouse, right? Or with a tablet to click on and do certain things. So there is a place for both. You can't in networking just do everything that's possible on a device just using the GUI. And it also makes no sense to only use the command line interface. In networking, we use both. Both of them have advantages, both of them have disadvantages. It would be true to say that the more experienced you are, the more command line interface you would probably use, especially when it comes to managing devices. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for GUI. There is certainly a place for GUI. And when we do the demo later on, you will see how fantastic the GUI actually is, and how miserable some of our customers, some of our competitors' GUI is. It's an area that needs a lot of work. But when you execute it well, it is absolutely fantastic. Now, this particular GUI is available just from within the browser, and that's the benefit of using a GUI, right? Apple, for example, doesn't easily give you access to the command line interface. Okay, that's one of the disadvantage of iOS, if you want to call it that. But on Mac, you have, on the Mac operating system, you have access to command line interface. Of course, Android devices are slightly different in that area. But the advantage of doing something on GUI is it works the same way on an iPad, on an iPhone. It works the same way whether you're using Mac or Windows. It doesn't, or Linux. It doesn't matter. GUI work as long as you have a browser. It works really well. It works over HTTP, and the same, of course, over HTTPS. Now, what are the goals of managing networks? Okay, what are the goals? Well, really to manage end-to-end of your networks. Okay, what do we mean by that? Well, from the core, from managing the core in your data center, all the way to managing that access point that you might have in your company, right? Or in your house. In your house, you might not have core. Of course, you wouldn't. You might have one or two switches. You might. A couple of access points in your house. Well, network management is about managing all of those devices, okay? End to end. That's what we mean when we say end to end. It's also about simplifying it. And if you can, automating it. Automating the management of this, and we'll look at that. You might think, well, big deal, automating. I've got a house, I've got 2 access points in my house. What's the benefit of automating? I can walk over to those things and just manage them. That is true. But think about a hospital. Think about a hospital that might have, say, 3, 4, 5 floors and might have 500 access points. Becomes a lot more complex, right? And so when we say to simplify and automate, you can see what we mean by that. As the networks grow, if you manage a school or a university, you can see how the complexity can become a really big issue here. So that's another one of the goals, to simplify it, to automate those things that you can using network management, right? Also, to reduce the total cost of ownership. What's the point of putting in networking equipment if you need a team of 20 people, in a hospital just to do network maintenance? It's like, wow, that's a very expensive operation if you have to pay 20 salaries to look after your network. So one of the goals of network management is to reduce the cost, and that's where Extreme does this work. That's why we use tools like ExtremeCloud IQ, where we put a lot of the management in a GUI and we put it in a browser being controlled from the cloud, because suddenly one person can have a view of the entire infrastructure from one pane of glass. And so one of the goals is reduce the cost of networking maintenance. And that's our job as Extreme Networks. By reducing complexity, we make it cheaper for you to manage. And of course, improve the end user experience. if if an end user has to go through 25 clicks to add a new AP, oh my word, that's complex. Because if you have 10 APs, it's 250 clicks. No, we as Extreme Networks, we try and do all the simplification to make it easier for you as an end user, as a customer, as one of our partners to set up and configure. If we make things easier, your life is easier. Okay, so network management system has goals, has objectives. All of these are part of that. Now let's look at that thing I told you about. We call it FCAPS, right? The same body that designed and put forth the OSI model, very structured model to describe networking. They've also put something together to talk about and to conceptualize how a network management system should work, what it should do, what the objectives are. And they came up with a system called FCAPS. And so let's look at that and break down each one of those letters and what they mean. The first part is the F, okay? And that's about fault management, to help to detect, to identify and notify users of issues. So a network management system should have this in place, okay? We do that because we want to avoid unnecessary downtime, putting out the fires, right? We want to catch the fires before they start burning. We want to prevent fires before they start burning, before the conditions are there for them to burn. So network degradation, why wait for the network to be on its knees before you go and reboot something or you reset something or do an upgrade or something to that effect? So a network management system is about identifying faults to help to detect them, not after they've occurred, but before they've occurred. So that's what that F stands for. What about the C? Well, the C is about configuration management, okay? That's about collecting information, configuration, tracking configuration, or any changes that happen due to replacing hardware or failures or something like that. So sometimes devices fail. They really do. So you have a switch and that switch dies. Okay, it's been active for 4 years, 5 years. The power supply, there was a spike in power, it died. And you go and suddenly replace it with another switch, not the same, but a different one. And that could mean that the configuration that you had there is no longer there. And now, oops, that doesn't quite work, and that printer doesn't quite work like it should. So configuration and managing and collecting configuration changes, that should be part of a network management system. That's really, really efficient, important, right? What about accounting management? Well, that too is really important. And what's that about? Well, accounting management is to collect information about current usage and trends and behavior. So if you know how many people are using your switch, if you know the utilization, if you know that every morning when your 24 users come into the office or your 30 users come, if you know that it spikes and that switch is running at 99% in the morning, if you've collected all of this information, then you can be in an advantageous position, because you can then, okay, I need to make this change, I need to make that change, I need to replace this because this is on the edge, right? This is really pushing the ability of what my system can be. So collecting current information helps you to optimize the network, to plan properly, okay? The next one is about performance. Performance is identifying and monitoring the network, the throughput, the utilization. So this is kind of based on accounting as well, right? Because if you identify the bottlenecks and things like this, and the threshold, when the thresholds are being reached, this is really important. Monitoring the performance. And finally, security, F caps, easy to remember and understand. Security, controlling authorization and access to assets on the network. So this is another one of those things. A network management system, you need to be able to control access to this information. You don't want any Tom, Dick, and Harry just to have access to know that network switch, is reaching peak capacity every morning, or to be able to go in and make configuration changes to your switches. You want to make sure that any network management system has security as part of the underlying infrastructure. Okay, so remember that F caps. A network management system is about that. It's about these goals, these designs, these purposes to help you manage a network. Okay, next go straight into the next session, how we manage devices and networks. And again, let me read over here what we want to do. The objective over here is to understand SNMP. Now, we've spoken previously about SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Here you see something that looks the same but is not the same. SNMP. Can you guess what the S stands for? Come on, on the chat, go there. What's the S stand for? Yes, come on. And what's the P stand for? So we kind of already know what the S and the P stands for. And the other one was SM, simple mail, right? Transfer protocol. This is simple network management protocol. Okay, similar but not the same. So we're going to understand what it does. We understand the different versions, and then we're going to understand this concept of MIB. No, it's not a Men in Black. I love that movie, Men in Black. It's not about Men in Black, but we're going to understand what this is about. So, network management systems, they depend a lot on protocols, okay? And the one that's most often used is SNN for November, SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, okay? This protocol uses UDP, not TCP. Remember TCP, not TCP. This protocol is using UDP. It operates on port 161 and 162, and we'll talk about both of those. And it gives you statistics, alarms, configurations, alerts, that type of stuff. So this is a protocol that was designed specifically to manage devices. Okay, now we've spoken about protocols. There's hundreds of them in networking. We know what they're for, how they're used, or we know what they're used for, really, because everyone does something different. This one is about network management. They can run with SSH, which is TCP port 22, and that we use for configuration, backups, firmware upgrade, all of that type of stuff. But let's look. We have let me just put that there. Simple Network Management Protocol. We use MIBs, which I'm going to cover, MIB1, MIB2. We're going to cover what those are. Remote monitoring 1 and 2, that's all part of the network management system. And we can use a CLI access, and of course we could use GUI as well. And sometimes even to manage networks, we also use APIs. We haven't really spoken much about APIs, but we will talk about this. So an introduction to SNMP. When we were using things like this, okay, when we were managing devices like this, what we needed to do is, if you wanted to, if HP said, hey, or Extreme Networks had said, hey, we have a new firmware upgrade for that device. If you wanted to manage that device, if you wanted to upgrade that device to the latest firmware to fix a bug or security issue, you'd have to take your laptop, walk over to that device, plug in the serial cable, plug it into your device, run, a specific tool, log in, do the update, download the update, push it, to that device, reboot that device, make sure the power doesn't go down while you're rebooting that device, and you would then upgrade that device. Okay? For obvious reasons, it's not a great idea to do that, especially when you have a big network, right? So SNMP allows you to put what we call agents. It's a little agent. Think of it like a little spy. No, that's a bad term. An agent is a piece of software that sits on that device or on all networking devices, and it runs and responds to SNMP. And its job is to give a management system and a network management system. Its job is to give it a response to questions. So the network management system might ask this device, might ask the agent on this device, if imagine it's a printer, how many pages do you have in tray 1, right? If it's a printer, in tray 1, how many pages do you have? And it might ask that. And the agent software on that device will respond back. Okay? So that's what that agent is. In a printer, it might be about paper. It could be about the toner. If it's a color printer, it might ask, how much toner do you have left in the red cartridge or the blue cartridge or the black cartridge, right? And the agent is sitting on that device and responds to the network management system. And that network management system, of course, as we've said, would be using SNMP. Okay, let me just click on there. Would be using SNMP to make that query, and it would do it via what we call a get. Okay, so it sends a get. So I send a get the information about paper in tray 1. Okay, I could also do a set. Okay, from my network management system using SNMP, I could also do a set, and that sets a variable. What do I mean by that? I could say things like, tell me or alert me, notify me when the threshold for the paper gets to less than 50. So it does a request and it's 65. Great. That's the response that it got. But I can say when you reach 50, that is the threshold. And that agent will then do something further. It will say, okay, I've now been told when I get to 50 that instead of waiting for a request, I send the answer. So I've been told when I get to 50, send that we call that a trap. We set a trap, right? Think about a trap with some cheese. You put a trap where the trap is set. When someone steps on the trap, when a mouse steps on the trap, it sets off the trap. Boom! I hear that something has happened. And that's what we do with SNMP, with the agent. We can, from the network management system, which uses an application running SNMP. Remember, SNMP is running on layer 7. Yes, the application layer. And so we can set a trap. We can set a setting, a configuration on that device, on a printer, on a switch or whatever. When the threshold gets above this, set that trap so that when that happens, that device, instead of waiting for a request, is proactive. Yeah, tells me that information. And SNMP has had SNMP has had 3 generations. Now, the first generation already worked really well, but it did everything in clear text, meaning that the communication between your network management system and the agent and the device was completely open, so anybody could read it. It wasn't secure. SNMP version 2 was still open. It had some improvements, but it was still open. NMP 3 version 3, which is the most popular version that we use today, that now has security on it, and it has privacy and security as well, so that you need security to be able to use it, and that makes perfect sense. You don't want anybody to be able to access this information. So we've had kind of 3 versions of this. Okay, now I told you about MNB. It's not Men in Black. Management Information Base. So here's one of these things where networking engineers, they make things complicated. Why call it base where you could have called it database? Okay, MIDB. But anyway, that's what it is. Management Information Base. So if you go back to the concept of a printer, okay, if we go back to the concept of a printer, what is this MIB? Well, when if you have a photocopier in your office, one of those big ones, or even a networking printer, one of these heavy duty networking printers, you would notice that they have a menu. They have this little menu thing, and you can go in on the menu and you can set different things, right? You can set it to print in black and white only, even if it's a color printer. You can configure all sorts of stuff. Okay, tray 2, make that A4, tray 1, make that A3. You have that menu. Think of all of those menu options as being a database, right? A management information database, but call it a management information base. That's what it is, okay? You can see that if I walk to the printer, I can set all of these changes, but a management information system, network management system, is going to use SNMP to query all of those tools, all of those options on there. So it is a structure. It's arranged in a specific way. So if we talk about MIB, we talk about it's a database, but it has a specific data structure. Okay. It's configured in a certain way, and it has certain structure that always starts in a certain way and then kind of splits. Okay, think about a tree. It's a tree structure. Let me show you what it actually looks like. Have a look at this over here. Every management information base starts with this. Now this is a legacy. This is legacy. This is just when it was originally done for the Department of Defense. That's what that DOD over there is. It was done in this way. And this structure, when we say it's a tree, if you think about that as a branch, look at this as the trunk. It breaks out into different areas. Okay, directory, management, experimental, and private. Okay, and then you see that all of these have numbers on them. Okay, and that translates to something like this, which we call an identifier, an object identifier. So if I wanted to identify this TCP over here, then I would write that as 1. Okay, look at this. 1.3.6.1.2.1.6. Do you see how smart that is? And when I'm at .6, there will be other branches off of here. And that could then be .1, .6, .1, .1, .6, .2, .3, .4. That means that this allows manufacturers, it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what equipment it is, it allows manufacturers to have a management information base for anything, from a printer to a switch, to a router, to an access point. It doesn't matter what it is, because look at this. You have private. So these would be environmental. Everything that talks on a network is going to have TCP. So if you wanted to talk TCP, you would have this structure going down here to TCP. But there might be things that Extreme Network does that might even have some proprietary information on there. That way, you would just go down this branch over here, private. And so you'd go down private, enterprise. Hey, guess what? Extreme has its own unique number, okay, that's assigned to us by an organization like AANA, maintained by AANA. So that is Extreme's device. So if we have an Extreme access point, hey, guess what? You come down this path, and then look, we have traps, we have agents, we have products, miscellaneous. So if you wanted to use a network management system using SNMP, we would publish this information, right? So we would make this information, this MIB information, available to you, and you could then set up using whatever software. As long as it's running SNMP, you could then go and find it. Okay, so let's look at sys uptime for this, for this Extreme switch, and you could see, well, that is using 1361.2. So that's not a private thing, because that's common. So you'd go to 2, then we'd go to 1, then we'd go to 1, and from there it would be 3. It would be a branch off here, and that would give you the system uptime, how long that switch or that device has been running. If you used 1.4, that would be system contact. Who do you contact for that? This could be system location. So do you see how this could be incredibly powerful as to what you could do? So you can see how using a network management system on top of SNMP, using the SNMP, using the SNMP, you can see how powerful this is, and how you could manage huge amounts of networks, huge amounts of switches, by just setting traps or just making queries to all of these devices to get back information. Pretty neat, right? Pretty neat. I'll see you after this break, where we will talk a little bit more about implementing SNMP, and then we will look at a demo. I'll do a demo and show you XIQ, show you the GUI. Stay tuned. Go get yourself some coffee. Go have a little break. We'll be back in 10 minutes.
Ga ik terug naar 1997, naar de eerste editie, waarbij we met een grapje zijn begonnen. In de zin van, we gaan in een weiland een beetje crossen en dan gaan we een feesttentje naast zetten. En dat was zo'n succes. We kregen de smaak te pakken, we wilden groeien, we wilden meer. En zo is het festival heel langzaam gegroeid.
Zwarte Cross is one of the largest outdoor music and sports festivals in Europe. We have been providing the Wi-Fi network really to offload the data from the public 3G, 4G network. Together with our partner Indicium, we're trying to enhance the user experience.
Die realiseren is eigenlijk het hele draadloze en bekabelde netwerk. Het grote voordeel hiervan is dat de veiligheid geborgd is. En daarnaast zien we dan ook dat mensen 4G gaan gebruiken. Dus de mix eigenlijk van 4G en draadloos netwerk gebruikt.
Imagine a green field where cows are feeding themselves for 144 acres and you have to set up an event including so much IT as we do here at Zwarte Cross. You have to have a lot of glass fiber to host people, to scan 2,000 people per gate per hour. So we have 9 gates, yeah, 80,000 people are able to enter in the area. Those are challenges because there's nothing here.
This year introduced a few new analytic systems that Zwarte Cross is using to understand what are the trends on the network, what are the issues on the network, or how the network is performing during the festival days and before. What it does effectively is it looks into all of the traffic for all of the clients, what they're doing, when they're doing, and how much traffic they push, what applications they use. You can see that the network response and application response very stable.
This is of course a great hospitality event. We're providing the best connectivity in festivals like this because people more and more want to be connected with the people at home, their friends, their family, and we can help the organization there to give all the visitors better experience.
So for this year, we are also providing our Extreme Guest solution. When they connect to the free Wi-Fi network here at Zwarte Cross, they get a nice splash page where they can just click on accept and connect.
They are moving all the time, and this is what we can understand here as the dwell times by the hour of the day, by the day of the week. We know how many of them are new users that just came in today, how many of them have registered, for example, yesterday, and this is the returning connection.
Last year we did about 5 terabyte of data transfer across our Wi-Fi into the internet. I'm very glad to have a technical partner like Extreme Network to help us solve these issues we encounter every year.
Je wil weten waar mensen uithangen, je wil weten hoe mensen zich registreren, je wil weten hoe voorraden worden bijgehouden. Dat betekent dat techniek eigenlijk onmisbaar is. Sterker nog, als de techniek uitvalt, kunnen we haast niets meer. We hebben een partner, Extreme Networks, die ons daarbij ondersteunt. En daar zijn we ontzettend trots op, want daardoor hebben we het wel voor elkaar om voor iedereen dit hele mooie feest mogelijk te maken.
My name is Akio Sugeno. I'm a VP of the engineering. Company name is Telehouse. And we provide a data center on about 48 cities on the globe. But we also provide Internet exchange point service in New York and Los Angeles. That's our unique point as a data center provider. As our exchange point operator, our customer is always demanding. Our customer is like Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook. We want to make sure we provide enough capacity at shortest latency. So port density is pretty important. Now customer is demanding 100 gig ports, so we have to provide hundreds of 100 gig ports for their needs. And we currently have over 1,200 customers, and our peak traffic is 600 gigabit per second. So we want to make sure our exchange point is running stably. Currently, we use SLX routers, and the reason I chose XLX is the port density of 100 gig ports, and it speaks MPLS with the VPLS, which is like a key engineering feature we need. Also, it runs SLX operating system, which is based on Linux. So that means we can write code, we can automate everything. The 100 gig port is key feature we needed. Also, faster latency of SLX provides is a key for our demanding customer like Netflix. They're demanding shortest possible latency to deliver their TV contents to the end users. That's kind of key point for us. Extreme has like a dedicated our team. They know us, they know our configuration, software version, everything, and they do have a lab emulating our environment. So whatever happens, they can emulate. They know what we have, they know how we operate. I don't have to explain anything. This is a kind of issues. It's a great service. Besides IIX operation, which demands higher speed, like 100 gig, we are also shooting for the cloud connectivity service. The enterprise market needs lower speed, like 1 gig, however, more port density at lower cost. That's kind of our challenge, and I'm sure Extreme can provide such services.
Okay, back from the break, coming into land. Right, talking a little bit more about network management systems. In the previous two parts, I've been talking about network management systems, and I've been kind of saying all the time, your network management system is going to be using SNMP, and it's going to be doing this and this and this, etc. And I've been always referring to this network management system. In essence, if this conversation was held a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, 15, whatever, the concept of cloud, the concept of managing the stuff in the cloud was very, very, very immature, if at all even possible, okay? Companies 15 years ago would absolutely never have considered hooking up or connecting their infrastructure into the cloud. They would have said things like, oh, that's very insecure, for example. It's like, oh no, security is a big thing. It's like, wow, no, we would never do that. We would just, it would be so expensive to keep our equipment connected to the cloud. There would have been a whole host of reasons. Well, times have changed, right? And nowadays we just think of cloud as an extension of our enterprise. We don't see it as an invasive thing anymore. It's just an extension of our we do backups nowadays to the cloud. Probably a lot of this has been driven by consumer technology, right? The ability to take our phones and back them up to the cloud, to put our photos in the cloud. If we don't have enough storage on a device, like, so what, just chuck them up in the cloud. And so it's almost, I think the day will come where we will refer to the cloud. We won't even say the cloud. We will just talk about storage. It won't really matter if it's in the cloud or not in the cloud. I mean, at the end of the day, where is the cloud anyway? It's probably in the data center underground or under the sea, or wherever. So where previously it was this thing, this thing, and no one wanted to connect to it because of security and all of those things. Nowadays it's like, yeah, what's the big deal? It's just an extension. So the next logical thing is not just to use it as a place to store, but could we turn the cloud into a network management center, for example? Could we management system? Could we do that instead of, hey, that's an idea. Let's think about it. Let's go and read this part as we normally do at this stage. So, cloud-based management, what are the objectives for this module? Well, to understand what is a cloud-based approach to network management, to experience basic ExtremeCloud IQ functions. And although I've got some slides to show you this stuff, I'm actually going to do a live demo for you to take a look at. And then to understand the difference between on-prem and cloud approaches to network management. So kind of pre-standard things. Now, nowadays, even though Extreme is a leader in cloud management, and it's not just us who say it, Gartner and a number of others say that we're a leader in this area of cloud managed networking. Even though we're a leader in that, it doesn't mean that the whole world has moved here. Nowhere close, right? It takes time for these things to happen. And with time, this will happen. With time, more and more companies will adopt this type of technology. But there's still an enormous amount, and the vast majority of networks at the moment are still managed by what we call on-premise or on-prem. We kind of say on-prem, right? That's managed locally. So you have resources on-prem, you have computers on-prem, everything is managed on-prem. Your IT engineers are on-prem. That's been the way for eternity until now. But things are changing. And they're changing because on-prem requires significant cost, right? You need to spend significant amount of money and management tools and resources to be able to do this and to deploy it and maintain it, etc., etc. Security. So this has been something that IT operations have just had to live with, okay, for forever. Cloud-based approach allows a much friendlier approach to do all of this, especially to things like CapEx, to finance, right? Because if you have all your management, your network management system on-prem, it means from an operational point of view, from a financial point of view, you would have had to spend money to have this equipment, to buy all of this, to configure, to set it all up. And then obviously, like we spoke about maintenance, you need to upgrade it, to maintain it, to put the latest versions on it. And that might be, updating all your agents. It might be a lot of work. And so from cloud, by putting it in the cloud, from a finance point of view, it makes it a lot neater for your balance sheet, because it's no longer CapEx, it's now OPEX, it's operational expense, right? You can claim it back. It's operational cost of doing business rather than buying all of this equipment. So it starts to make sense. And oftentimes technology in enterprise is driven by financial decisions. When it makes financial decisions, oftentimes that's where the drive comes in. It's not only that. I mean, you know, if it makes financial sense, but security-wise it doesn't make sense, it's not going to happen. It needs to be a balance. But finance is a strong indicator. So once these types of network management systems are available in the cloud, then people start thinking, well, financially, it makes a lot of sense to do it this way. It's also faster to deploy. Think about it. You know, Amazon's cloud is already sitting up there. Microsoft's cloud, Azure, is already sitting up there. Google's cloud is already sitting up there. It's like you don't have to, you know, to go and build a data center. You don't have to wait. It's there. It's waiting for you. It's already set up. It's there. So you could, you know, you could use the system almost immediately, and that makes it very, very advantageous in today's world, in the fast-paced world of business, where you want to get a business up and running really quickly. A cloud-based approach makes complete sense from a network management point of view. The other thing that's really, really interesting about this type of stuff is virtually no scalability limits. Okay? If you have all of this, if you have a really large enterprise, your network management system needs servers, needs racks, needs power, needs, you know, cooling, needs all of these things. The impact on the environment is there. All of these types of space, you know, space is always at a premium. When you start putting this technology into the cloud, I mean, it's not, you know, that suddenly it doesn't use electricity and your green, you know, footprint disappears, but it's managed much better. Your space, you don't have to have so much space. You can have less space because it's stored somewhere else. And of course, if Extreme Networks notices that, you know, that our network management system is being pushed, we just scale it up on demand as it needs to. We just scale it up, and when it doesn't need it, we just scale back, so that you as a customer, organizations as customers, they never notice it. They never have an issue. It's not like having physical on-prem machines that need to be upgraded, that, oh, this machine is so slow, we need a new machine, we need to buy new servers, we have to buy more RAM, we have to, oh no, it takes 6 weeks to get, disappears. So it makes a lot of sense. And data security relies on the hands of a solution vendor and cloud service provider. So like I've said previously, security, the weakest link is always the human. But in this case, we have the security, in Extreme's case, of ExtremeCloud IQ and ISO 27001 amongst one of the many certifications that we have. But we also have whoever the cloud provider is, Amazon, they have their own security, their own standards, their own policies, and they have to be secure because they have government contracts, and governments would ensure that to put data on them, they have to meet certain standards. They have that, and so does Google, and so does Microsoft Azure. So you can see that from so many angles, it makes so much sense. So we'll talk a little bit about Extreme, and I know that this course has been practically just talking about technology without trying to say, ooh, you got to buy Extreme's technology, right? Other than when I said you got to buy it because it's purple. But Extreme has a platform, and it's a great platform. And I'm going to show you how this platform works and why it would make sense, especially the way that we've architected, for customers to think about using cloud management services. We offer ours, and we think ours is great, and the market thinks it's great, but that doesn't mean that we're the only player, right? Look at them, but let me expose you to it for you to see. So we call it Extreme Cloud IQ. That's our network management solution. Our NMS is ExtremeCloud IQ. Now, it's made up of two major components. Now remember, this is sitting in the cloud. This example that I'm giving you over here, I might refer to, AWS, Amazon Web Services. But we are the only cloud vendor that can put this technology on any cloud, and we actually have it running on Google's cloud, on Microsoft's Azure cloud, and on Amazon's web services. On all three, we can spin it up on all three. But originally, it was developed on AWS, and this is one of the great benefits of building cloud technology properly, is if you build it properly from the ground up, not just take software and put it on a bunch of servers and say you've got a cloud solution. No. Containerize it, build microservices. If you build it correctly, then it just means that you can orchestrate it from any platform. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be AWS. You can orchestrate it from anywhere. That is one of the great benefits of Extreme Cloud IQ. But it has two distinctive components. Now, if you look at this picture over here, you'll see that, we have the global data center. That is one of the main components that we're talking about over here. And then you'll see we have the regional data center. And then this third part is customers, customers who buy our technology. They're sitting over here. Now, they're not in specific, they located all over the world. But what exactly do we mean by these global data centers and regional data centers, right? Well, let's break them down and look a little bit in more detail. What's the global data center? So the global data center is somewhere that performs tasks related to the overall management of Extreme Cloud's architecture, infrastructure, let's call it that, that manages the overall thing, the overall management of our solution. And that includes things like managing administration and customer accounts. We have a solution, but we have thousands of customers. We have hundreds of thousands of devices. In fact, we have over 1 million devices and growing all the time. But administration and customer accounts, they are managed on this global, data center, on this level. Firmware image distribution. What is firmware? For those of you who don't know, when you have a mobile device, Android or Apple, whatever it might be, and they announce, in Apple's case, Apple announces that they have a new update for the software, or Google might announce that for Android they have a new version, right? That's called a software revision, a software update. It updates the software. But there are also firmware revisions for your computer, for devices, for access points, for switches, which is to do with the hardware upgrade. When they update the firmware, the code, sometimes they would call that the code, when they update the code of that hardware device to a newer revision, right? And that might be to add functionality, to add a bug fix or whatever. So you kind of have these software updates and you have these firmware updates when they update the hardware itself. So that would be handled, the firmware image distribution. We call it an image. It's not an actual photo or anything like that. We just call that snapshot of firmware that's updated, we call that an image. So firmware image distribution, it's done on this level. And of course, when you sign in to Extreme Cloud IQ, that's also done on this level, okay? So you navigate to an HTTP site, so it doesn't matter where you are around the world, the HTTP site or HTTPS site that you go to is always the same. And that's even if you're using AWS or you're using, Azure or you're using Google. It doesn't matter which one is the cloud provider. You always go to the same landing page, okay? That landing page is all done on the on the global data center. So we're good on that. The sign-ons, all done on the global data center on this level over here. Now, what about the regional? You can see from the name, kind of, right? The regional data center. Now, why is this a thing? Why do we do this? Well, performance might be just one of those reasons that you do it like this. Because if we managed everything globally, it means our customers in the Middle East, our customers in Asia, our customers in Africa, our customers in Australia would need to go all the way to the US, for example, to go and get their data. And so that could slow down things because lag time, etc., from all these different regions could turn the performance into, not so great. So that's one reason why you don't want to focus everything and keep all, the data in one particular data center. So that would be one of those things. But what does the regional data center do? What's the responsibilities? Well, managing customer networks, assigning a set of customer networks for an assigned set of customer networks, including network devices. So if you're sitting in the UK and you buy a Extreme network device and you hook it up, it's going to go into a regional data center, right? Client information, regional data center. Application visibility, the visibility, regional data center, okay? And then customer data resides in the RDC. This is very, very important. Why is that? Because different countries have different data privacy laws, okay? Let's think about something like the European Union. So the European Union has quite strict data privacy laws. And it means that data that of European citizens needs to sit within Europe, okay? Those are the rules. If you want to offer a service to Europeans, the data needs to sit within Europe, anywhere within Europe. Of course, the UK has now kind of broken away from that. So, they would probably want at some point that data needs to be stored within, and it is, because data within the UK has always been stored in Ireland, okay? So we kind of get how that works. But even within Europe, Germany has much stricter rules on data than the rest of Europe, okay? So even though ExtremeCloud IQ, from a legal point of view, helps Germans because the data is stored in Europe, Germany goes one level higher, and Germany says, no, for German citizens, we want their data to be stored in Germany, on servers in Germany. That's just because they have very, very strict data privacy laws. And so with ExtremeCloud IQ, we have a regional data center in Germany. So do you see how the regional data centers are? Customer data never leaves those regional data centers. So if you are a customer, or if you know of a customer, or any customer, within Europe who buys or who signs on to Extreme Networks management system, right? ExtremeCloud IQ, their data will comply with European laws, commonly known as GDPR. So it's important to know over here that when we talk about data, we're just talking about the metadata, okay? We're not talking about storing, which website, storing, trying to capture the data about your credit card information, and that's not the data. We're not interested in that. We just store the metadata. What's metadata? Well, it's data associated with the transport of HTTP, right? Or any type of data. So if you have an access point, that access point has a signal. It has a radio. It has two radios, a 2.4 and a 5. If the 2.4 radio is busy and the network performance is slow, how do we know? Because we can see the traffic going backwards and forward. That's what we're measuring. We can see that on that band is very busy. It's a network management system, right? And because we can see, that's the data that we are tracking. So we're tracking metadata about your data, but we're not actually tracking your data as in your credit card information. No. It's just the think of it as the metrics associated with the traffic that's been generated, right? If you have a I'm trying to think of an example that I can describe that where all I track. So think about anonymizing data. A lot of companies, they anonymize data, meaning they obscure the user, they obscure that side of it. I don't want to know anything about users. All I want to know is how many users came to this particular website over a 2-hour period, right? Kind of like we do when we look at Vimeo. Vimeo tells us that there was X amount, 200, 300, 400 people watching this broadcast live. That's great. We don't need to see what other side. We can't see what other sites you were on, where you went to, what you did. I can't see if you're on Facebook or Instagram as you're watching me. I have no idea. I don't really care, to be honest. But we have no idea. We're just looking at the data. How many users signed in to the session? So you kind of get what we're talking about over here. But ExtremeCloud IQ meets GDPR, the European laws, all the standards, and also is ISO 27001 certified, right? This is very, very important. It's an international standards organization. We meet the requirements for the secure network management system. We meet the requirements to get the certification. Most of our competitors don't have this, they have a flavor of this. No, you can actually go and look at our certification. We also have, there's also always going to be customers who don't want to use cloud. They mistrust cloud, like, no, I don't want cloud. We also have this type of solution that can be done on-prem, but there's many disadvantages to doing on-prem, right? When we start thinking about machine learning, when we start thinking about artificial intelligence, for these systems like ExtremeCloud IQ to start making their own decisions and start reacting automatically to when they see changes in network traffic, that's fantastic, but that you can only get when you have cloud managed because of the amount of data that comes through. So you can have this type of solution on a on-prem, but you're never going to have the richness that you would get with a cloud managed solution. And that's all I kind of want to say about that. Just to give you an idea, this slide is not completely up to date, but you can see over here that we have the yellow is private data centers, regional data centers: Tokyo, Seoul, Sydney, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Virginia, Frankfurt, Dublin. You can see where these regional data centers that we're talking about. Frankfurt would obviously be the one that covers Germany. For German citizens, for German customers. Okay, now this has been updated and there's more regional data centers for sure. So local cloud, this is an example of a GUI, you know, what you would see in a GUI. Now that could be local, or this could be cloud as well, but you can see the difference between something that looks like this and something that that is driven by command line interface. Okay, so local you know, is going to have limitations like 5,000 devices, and you might think, geez, 5,000 devices, that is huge. And that's big, but that's not really huge. There's networks that are much bigger than something like that, but that would kind of be a limit if you wanted to have this, you know, on-prem. So I said to you I was going to give you a demo. So before I actually give you a live demo, let me just show you how some of these things would work, because they just, I mean, they're so easy, they're so, you know, clever. If you have a device, not you know, I mean, this was one of those devices, but today the devices are a lot more modern and smaller and more powerful than this. But if you bought an extreme network device, like an access point, for example, every device from us would have a serial number. Okay, that would be on the back of the device. There'd be a serial number, and all you wanted to do is, if you wanted to connect it up to cloud to manage it with our ExtremeCloud IQ network management system, just take that serial number, you type it in here, or you click on here where it says quick add devices. You would, over here in this section, you would type in the serial number of the device, wait a few minutes, boom, and the device will appear right there, you know, just after a few minutes. Initially, that red icon goes on. That means I've installed it. I've told the cloud that I now own this particular device. And while it does the configuration, this little icon remains red. Once that's been configured, boom, it turns green, and that device is now connected to the cloud and managed. Now just think about that for a minute, right? I have a customer, Nando's. Actually, and Nando's is an extreme customer, right? They have, say, I don't know how many, but let's say they've got 1,000 branches around the world. They're a worldwide customer. And let's imagine that in each branch, they have one access point. Okay, it could be more, I don't know. But let's imagine they have one in every branch. Okay, chances are that they don't have technical people with laptops who are going to come in, you know, connect a USB cable or an Ethernet cable to the console port and go and configure, follow a set of instructions to go and configure and set up this access point to provide them and customers with internet access. So how would you do this in the past? Well, you might hire a IT company to do all of this for you, and it would cost you a packet of money, right? It would be, you know, IT company in every country, or get a big player like IBM to go and do this for you. Or you could just say, well, let's order 1,000 access points from Extreme, and when they do that, Extreme sends you a printout with an email with 1,000 serial numbers. You come into this ExtremeCloud IQ, you say, quick add, import these 1,000 serial numbers. So it imports all of these 1,000 serial numbers into the system. 1,000 red little dots go on. Yeah? Now, you're not going to go and configure every one of them. You might say, we want to have a certain policy. We want the 2.4 gigahertz radio to be turned on and the 5 gigahertz radio to be turned on. So we want to have that as a radio policy, but we want to have that on all our access points. No problem. You create a policy, call it radio policy, and then you apply that policy to all 5,000 or 1,000 network points, access points. And you go, blip. Guess what's going to happen? When someone plugs in that access point, it's going to connect to Cloud IQ automatically. And you're going to ask, how does it do that? Well, inside the DNA of every access point, there's a little piece of code that says phone home. So you send an instruction to all the Nando's managers at the stores, and you say, when you get this box, please open it. Look at the network cable in the office that every office has got. Plug this cable, Ethernet, into the back of this device. That's it. And leave it. That's all you do. Just plug it in and leave it. Right? Okay. Plug it in. It comes on. Power over Ethernet. Blip. Pops up. What happens after it pops up? Well, that little piece of code says, hey, phone home. Okay. It dials the IP address. Blip, blip, blip. Goes up to the network management system and says, hey, I'm serial number so-and-so. The network management system says, networks, oh, okay, yes, I see you over here. You are this one over here. Yeah, that's who you are. There's the MAC address, etc., etc. I've been told that when you connect to me, I need to send you the radio policy, which switches on the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz. So here we go. Poof, and it pushes that down that policy to that access point. And in minutes, you can configure 1,000 access points across the entire planet. That's the power of cloud. That's the power of network management systems hosted in the cloud. It's incredible what you can do with it. You can push out policies. You can take different access points if you have different types for different situations, bigger branches, smaller branches. You can have policies for every type of device. You could have policies for different countries and say, well, in this country, they have special opening hours, or they open 24 hours a day, but this country opens different. So we're going to, after operating hours, we're going to shut down the wireless access because we don't want people sitting outside connecting to our wireless and sucking up all the bandwidth and going to do, Mac updates or Android updates. We want to do. So you could have policies that you push to all the access points that belong to a certain country, to a certain type of access point. You could configure switches, right? This is part of what ExtremeCloud IQ doesn't just manage access points. It now talks to switches. You can turn off certain points, turn on certain points, reboot. The amount of capabilities that you have on here are incredible. Network management systems. So after this Aussie the L slide, I will conclude this section and then we'll go into a demo. So owls, I love this word, zygodactyl, which means their feet have 2 forward-facing toes and 2 backward-facing toes. Unlike most other zygodactyl birds, however, owls can pivot one of their back toes forward to help them grip and walk. Man, I absolutely love that. Fantastic. Right, so that concludes network management systems. And from here, let me go show you a demo. Just give me a few seconds to set up and then we'll switch over to that demo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the video off so that you can see the whole page better. And what you see on your screen at the moment is the page that everybody sees when they log on to ExtremeCloud IQ. Okay, so up at the top you can see extremecloudiq.com is the URL that you would go to. This is sitting on your global data center. So you'd add in your email, you'd add in your password if you already have an account. And of course, if you don't have an account, you could go and create one, and everyone is free to go and create one. I think it's a 30-day trial. But just to give you an idea, if you look up here, I told you a little bit earlier about machine learning and artificial intelligence. This is the amount of daily traffic, okay, that we get the metadata off of. 10.087 petabytes of data. We see about 4.83 billion management events per day. And client sessions, we see 55.6 million client sessions a day. So when we talk about, a sophisticated modern network management system, we're not joking. This is not, this is not fun and games. This is real. This is big time. So here we go. I've now logged in using my my account that I've created previously, and I'm going to go to manage my network. So I click on that, and this is coming up live. So a couple of seconds. You can see my URL changes, and it goes to IE. What's IE? Ireland. That's the data center that I'm now seeing in Ireland. And this over here is my house, my home, and you can see I've got 3 devices sitting here in my home that are being managed by ExtremeCloud IQ, and they are Bacon AP. That's my access point. You can tell, right? Snoopy Switch and Traffic Cop, right? These are the devices that I currently have. That's where I was, those little green and red. You see, these are all the status over here. These are all connected and ready for service. Those are the model numbers, okay, of what those devices are. Those are the IP addresses. So this is all from the cloud, right? This I can see entirely from the cloud. The IP addresses, the MAC addresses of each one of those devices, the serial number. I've hidden some of that, but you can see the serial numbers over here, the operating system version, the firmware on those devices, Wi-Fi channel 0, Wi-Fi power 0, power Wi-Fi channel 1. You can see the power over there, Wi-Fi power Wi-Fi 1. Power 10, sorry, that's the channel number. I'm using channel 161. The power is 10 on there, dBm. There's one client connected to that Wi-Fi radio, and I can just click on over here and I can get all that extra information if I wanted from there, right? All of this information, you just place a tick on it, boom, and it's available to you immediately. If I wanted to update a device, I could go here and just go update device, right? And it says, do you want to do a full update, a complete configuration, or just a delta configuration? Delta would mean only the things that have changed since the last time you did that. And if I go perform update, it's going to go through and going to go check if there is an update, and you can see that there wasn't I don't think, an update done, or it might be busy with an update at the moment. I think that there wasn't an update. I think that was the latest version. Yeah, that's correct. So imagine if I had 1,000 APs, I would just highlight that and I'd say go and update all the devices. Would I do that? No, probably not, but I could. Because I would be, if I had a worldwide organization, I could be covering many different regions, time zones and things like that. So I might not want to do that. I might want to group all my APs in Singapore together, and all the APs in in New York together, and all the APs in London together, and rather do one of those updates at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You can see exactly what's going on. So let me dig in a little bit and let's go look at this AP. So I click on that, and this is all been done from the cloud, right? I am not fiddling anything. This is the performance that you are seeing directly live on my system. It gives me an overview of my connection over here. You'll see, all right, I've got the internet. I'm going through ExtremeCloud IQ. There's my switch, the router, the traffic cop. There's Snoopy the switch, okay, and or that's my router, Snoopy the switch, and then there's my access point. You'll see the different IP addresses. That's fantastic to be able to see it in this way. Over here, I'm looking at traffic over the last 24 hours. So yeah, not a lot of traffic over the last 24 hours on there. I could, break it down by week or by month. Go there, look at it by month. Okay, so there hasn't been a lot of traffic, on there. Updating it in real time. So scroll down over here, and let's go over here, and let's look at that. And it says, okay, so on each one of these days, you can see the days. I have the clients, how much CPU usage, and all I'm doing over here, I'm just hanging my mouse, over this information. If I switch to 90 days, again, it will do an update. On that, and you can see how quick it is. It's fantastic, all right? There we go. Boop. I can see all of that information. The different color graphs mean different things. Purple meaning the memory usage, CPU usage. And so instead of being able to just see something now, I can go back and look at history. I can go back and look at when this stuff actually happens. It tells me the device health. There's the overall score, of this particular access point. It shows me a photo of what this actually looks like. Availability. Well, this has been up, forever. It's just never gone down. Configuration. Management. There I can see the 2.4 radio. If I wanted to see that, there's the 2.4 radio. There's how many times I was configured. Does this have a 5? Yeah, there's the 5 gigahertz radio. There's the different channels that I have. Both I can see that. Supported bandwidth, I can support 20 megahertz and I can support 80 megahertz. The spatial streams 1x1, 2x2, 3x3. Look at the different standards that I'm supporting: NA, B, AC, maximum transmission power. So this is, I'm doing this from one single pane of glass, right? Network usage, the amount of traffic that went out, the SSIDs. I mean, this is talking from the cloud. From the cloud, I'm looking at all of this actual information. I can even go in and look at where this device actually is sitting on my network. Oops, sorry about that. So I manage devices. I can look at reports. Look at all the reports, top application groups, top applications, top usage, top wired, unique clients. So all of this information broken down by hour, by days if I needed to that, by weeks. I can go back and I can look at information right across the board. I can see if there were any alarms, that were set up. Were there any major alarms that were set up? Well, there was one major alarm. I can also go and look at what information that was. Security. Were there any security issues on here over 24 hours? Was there anything that I needed to concern? Well, no, there was no one hacking. There was no issues at all. No one breaking into my network. Nothing, from that side of things. I can go and look at tools. Monitor. I can look at diagnosis, utilities. I can do VLAN probe. I mean, it's just the types of stuff that you can do, and this is all being managed from the cloud. Okay, all of this stuff is being managed from the cloud. Now, here's my my home address. And you can see if I click on this, right, I can go to the ground floor. And on the ground floor, I've created a map. And there we go. on the ground floor. There's the stairs that goes up to the ground floor. I can look inside there. Oh, look, there's my lounge. And in my lounge, I have 3 access points right over there. The 3 devices, Bacon, AP, Snoopy, Switch, and Traffic Cop. Those are the 3 devices that I have. Look at this. I can even do things like looking at a heat map. And you can see, okay, so over here in this area, I probably got very poor coverage. Over here, obviously this whole area, I'm sitting in this office over here, so you can see I've got decent coverage over here. You can see the noise ratio, the dBm minus 70. That's pretty good. And I can then go to first floor, and I can look at it from the first floor and see how does this work, the heat map work on the first floor. It should take a while to pop up. As always happens on these things. Maybe I've got no access. This is what it's telling me over here, but I should definitely have access. I don't know why it's saying that to me, just because maybe it doesn't have any clients. Are there any devices? No client position identified. Oh, so there's nothing over here. Right. No, nothing. I don't have anything showing on heat map. I don't know why that is. It should be showing me that I don't have much. Maybe I haven't added it in properly. But this is all managed from the cloud. If you had a local system, it would show you some of this information. But I'm getting all of this from the cloud. Okay. If I were to look at monitoring, I can see devices, clients, clients not that great. Wi-Fi has been good, network has been good. There's my architecture. That's what it looks like. How good is that? I mean, that's really fantastic. If I have Bluetooth devices, it can monitor those if the AP has an ability to do it. If I look at client 360, I don't have an information. I didn't select a client. So, manage machine learning insights, proximity and presence. So if you have APs that have proximity radios on there, then you can see devices here that are within that region. So, this is what's happening on our network. Look at that. Just look at that. Currently, 974,232 private pre-shared key users on this. 1,057,000 managed devices. All of this being managed from the cloud. If I wanted to add, devices, network policies, for example, I could come into here, look at my network policy. Hey, I have a network policy called blah blah blah. Let me go and click on that one, open it up. So what does this network policy say? Well, it says broadcast on both radios, radio 0 and radio 1, 2.4 and 5. This radio I can see is a SDR radio, software defined radio. I can use it in 2.4 or 5, or I can use it in 2.4 or 5. I can define, so I can end up with 2 5 gigahertz radio. I can set that all up over here. SSID, there's my my SSID usage, private. I'm using private pre-shared key. There's just incredible, phenomenal usage. There's the SSID, blah blah blah, that I can use and configure with the system. So this was just a really brief overview, very little, and you'll see more of this in the next course, of what it means when we talk about ExtremeCloud IQ, what it means when we talk about a network management system that is sitting in the cloud, configured in the cloud, running and monitoring an entire network from 3 devices to 3,000 devices or 10,000 devices. This is what it's all about. If you need help, you click on help and it opens up, and there you have contextual help. It's fantastic. Just type in what you need. So in the end, I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that you've learned a lot. You've seen the power of management, why we need it, the goals for this, and now you've seen a demo of what we're talking about when we're talking about network management system, but cloud network management system. Hope you had a good one. Don't forget the homework, and I'll see you guys on next week Thursday, right, where we start doing the final modules. We start looking the final bit of network management systems, where we talk a little bit about API. We do an overview of security, some security recommendation stuff, best practice that you can implement in your home network right now to secure your home network, maybe more than it's doing now. I'll cover some of those, and then we'll do a revision of the entire course end to end. For now, cheers, thank you for watching, and see you next week. Bye.